Hello, Dr. Childress here. Welcome. This is my Books from the Garage series, and these are my books on attachment. Now, most of the attachment stuff is in research, and so those are all PDF files. They're not books. So I don't really have many books on the attachment. I have a few I left in the garage. But what I want to do with this segment is just highlight the essential books on attachment that every single mental health professional working in high conflict divorce must absolutely, without question, read. And so we're going to start with John Bowlby. Okay, we're going to start with his series. He has 3 volumes. The first one is Attachment. And in this one, he describes the evolutionary origins of the attachment system, primary motivational system. He talks about where it comes from in other species and how it's based on imprinting and how this attachment system developed, what it does, and how it functions. Then, in his second volume, he talked about separation, the breach of the attachment bond, and the subtitle there, Anxiety and Anger. So we have attachment. Did you know kids don't reject parents? No, they don't. And so you'll learn that in this book, that kids don't reject parents. Now, in this one, it's separation, subtitle, Anxiety and Anger. Oh my goodness, look at that. We have a child separating from a parent, a child rejecting a parent, separation, and the child's anxious and angry. Wow, what a coincidence that John Bowlby has written a book on this. Have you read John Bowlby's book on separation, anger, and anxiety? If not, I just want to beat you with this book. Now, and then he has his third volume, which is Loss, and the subtitle, Sadness and Depression. Now, it always baffled me, what struck me early on, I wasn't baffled, but what struck me early on was the absence of the child's grief response towards a targeted parent. We have a child rejecting a parent. They've lost the bond. There's a loss for the child of a relationship with a parent. So that's going to produce sadness and depression. So where is the child's sadness and depression? Where is their grief response in because of the separation? Where's their grief response? They don't show one. But it's neurologically based. It's part of a primary motive. So where's their grief? It's in the anger. It's the answer. Okay, that anger is their grief response. But you guys don't know that, do you? Because you don't know anything about how the attachment system works. And so that's a problem. The fact that you guys don't know the basic fundamentals of the attachment system, and you're assessing, diagnosing, and treating attachment-related pathology. That makes me crazy. Absolutely crazy that you have no clue to what you're doing. Did you know children don't reject parents? Okay, they don't reject parents. The pathological mourning. This is the 1980 book, the quote about pathological mourning. The child's deactivation of attachment behavior is pathological mourning. Did you know narcissists and borderlines, they don't process sadness? I'll talk about that in the narcissist. Wow, pathological mourning. Pathological mourning, the lost book for things. And so this is the 1980 book on that. And so this is really valuable because this is the one that actually describes the pathology we're treating. Now, in addition to the Bowlby books, are the Handbook of Attachment. Okay. Handbook of Attachment, Theory, Research, and Clinical Applications. Now, this is the book I would give to a postdoc. So if I had just a general postdoc, I would give them this book or ask them to get this book, and then I would assign certain articles out of the book, probably about 3 to 5 articles out of the book on this to orient them to it. And then they would just have it if they ever got into attachment pathology. This is their source for things. And what this is essentially good research articles that are so good that they've been put into a big old book, or the authors of the articles have kind of adjusted them into a book chapter versus the actual research article. So you can probably go out and find each one of these chapters in the research literature, but here they're nice in a nice big book. And so the Handbook of Attachment. And there's 3 volumes now. This is my first volume, volume 1. But there's 2 more since then, one very recent. And now for a postdoc who was actually going to do attachment, that was going to be their field of work, I would ask that they read the entire book. Okay, and so if we look at maybe the just chapter headings or the section headings for this book, there's one, overview of attachment theory. So that's a good. There's 5 little chapterettes, research type things on the overview of attachment theory. That's going to give you nice ground. Biological perspectives. This is evolutionary psychology. So there's biological. We know that. Infancy in attachment in infancy and childhood, and then attachment in adolescence and adulthood. Do you know that the attachment system controls love and bonding throughout the life? Yes, it does. So the attachment system forms its grammar in early childhood, but we use it throughout its life. And so the child's bonding problem to the parent right now, that's attachment in adolescence, childhood. Clinical applications of attachment theory and research. Wow, if you're going to be working with attachment pathology, probably be pretty useful to know about how to treat attachment pathology. And then emerging topics kind of at the end. And so there's a couple others with that. Now, here's the 3 volumes of Bowlby that are mandatory reading if you're going to work with attachment pathology. My goodness gracious. How can you work with attachment pathology if you don't even know what it is? And then we have your basic ground. Now, if you're actually going to work with this, you actually use the references and go out to those PDFs I'm talking about, those research studies. But this is a nice starter book. This is what I would give to a postdoc. And so this is my reading for a postdoc. For a general postdoc, I would not require Bowlby. I would just require this and about 3 to 5 articles from this. But for a postdoc who's working in attachment, most definitely this and more. But this is just starters for a postdoc. So if you haven't read these and you're working with attachment-related pathology surrounding divorce, that's going to be a problem. You need to go away because you don't know what you're doing. Or you got some reading to catch up on and got to get going pretty quick because that client coming in next week needs you to know all this stuff by next week. Oh my goodness. Yeah, because you've been practicing beyond the boundaries of competence for too long. Now, did you also know that, okay, here we have the attachment system. So here we have this is 1969. This is, I think, is 1973, I think. And this is 1980. So 1970 to 1980 is when he produced these 3 volumes. How long ago is that? 30, 50 years ago? My goodness gracious. You don't know stuff from 50 years ago? You don't even have basic stuff about that? Yikes. That is concerning. Well, in 1980s to 2000s, it's the mid-2000s, we discovered a whole second relationship system. So there's attachment, but there's a second relationship system having to do with what's called intersubjectivity. And it's a psychological connection system. So it allows us to go into the movies and feel what the actors feel in the movies as if we were having that experience ourselves. That's the intersubjective system. It has to do with mirror neurons. We even know the brain cells that do this is the mirror neuron network. And the 2 systems, attachment and intersubjectivity, work together. They work really, really well together. And understanding how they work and understanding the intersubjective system, oh my goodness, it just opens up so much. So you know that brainwashing people talk about? My goodness, that's right here. If you want to know about that, brainwashing. Now, they don't call it brainwashing. I mean, this is science. This is not like mysticism or something. This is science. This is a neurological basis. But that, or enmeshment. That's the family systems people call it enmeshment. Yeah, over here. That's where you're going to find it. And so this is just a very valuable domain to explore this intersubjectivity. Daniel Stern is the main person over here, as well as Ed Tronick, and then there's others. And I'll have a whole little books from the garage on this group. because they are so valuable. But my goodness gracious, you folks don't even have the basic information yet. I can't even get into like the really useful stuff because you guys don't know nothing. So here's your reading list from my garage. Good luck, and hopefully you can get to it by next week before you see your next patient. So follow me over to the next one, and we'll talk about my personality disorder books. Now there's an interesting set of books.